welcome to those of you in the room to our fall all-hands meeting. I think I counted up, this is number 16 for me. It's just kind of hard to believe. We have these twice a year, once in January, early February, and then another in late September, early October. The idea is that twice a year we can come together and share some high-level information with everybody in the Institute that wants to learn about it. We are live streamed across the platform, so welcome to everybody who's online. Well, let me get started then. Last year was the year of our celebration of innovation. I think I've got my orientation on this picture right. I think that is Ag Hall there on the left. Over on the right is the original Ag Experiment Station building. Derek McLean, I saw Dean McLean here a little bit ago. We've got a lot going on, but Derek said to me, and I never realized it, that yeah, down below where his office is right now, his temporary office as Ag Hall is closed, there were animal handling pens. So the animal scientists are all shaking their heads, yes. So there are still rings in the wall where you could latch up the animals. I was like, wow, I've been here a while and I didn't know that. Entomology hall, if you will, before it had the fire that took out the cool roof, and now we have a flat roof on that building. And then way down at the end, you can envision Chase Hall behind the flagpole. That was there way back when. So we've come a long way. I think the campus is changing dramatically. It's changed a lot in the 7 years that I've been with you all. Pretty cool. As cool as buildings are, the really important part of what we do is our people. Pretty cool, huh? Yep. Mike, thanks to you and your team. Kara, wherever you're sitting, thank you very much for helping pull that together. We shared this with the folks that came in for our gala, for the Innovation of Celebration Gala that was in this room. We had about 350 people in, I think it was June 10th, I think was the date. It was pretty neat. Well, a lot has gone on since our last meeting. Just to highlight a few of these things, in the upper left-hand corner, we had Beth Ford. Beth is the CEO and president of Land O'Lakes. So Beth was here. She accepted an invitation to speak at our Water for Food conference that was held in May. It was a fantastic opportunity. Tiffany moderated a Q&A session with Beth. It was terrific. Of course, we welcomed Chancellor Bennett. That happened in June, end of June, early July. Day 17 on the job. I'll talk a little bit more about this, and we've got a message from Chancellor Bennett. He got on the Rhodes Scholar bus with 25 new IANR faculty, and we went on a blitz across Nebraska. His wife Temple joined us 3 days, 2 nights. It was great to have him and for him to see, right, meet people, see the place, think about the possibilities and the potential, which is really what Nebraska is all about. I went on a listening tour. It felt like we were doing microbrew stops. Thanks, Jesse Brophy. But it was awesome. This was a picture up in Valentine at a small microbrew that was there. That was terrific. And then we've had the opportunity multiple times this spring through the summer to host our congressional delegation. We had, in fact, and I'll show a picture of this later, we had the entire, all five, it's not like huge, but all five of our congressional delegation was on campus. They were up at NREC. We saw them, we took their staffers out to Goodmanson. It's been a really good summer. Shout out to Derek McLean for a lot of his organizational skills and emceeing these sessions. Lots and lots and lots of highlights here. I ran through these, so I won't bore you with these. I think the last one always is fun for me. When we graduate our students in May, then we move into field season mode. IANR, 1,900 staff and faculty, about 600 of us, live and work outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, and touch all of our counties. And this is a chance for us to get out and see their great work. Field days are terrific. Weather sometimes gets in the way with some of those field days, but it really was outstanding to see. These are just some highlights, and of course in IANR Weekly and UNL Today, we see a lot of our stories. Thank you to the students, the staff, the faculty, who are the ones that generate these amazing, impactful stories and outcomes. So our people, we had 39 colleagues be promoted or tenured. And so I'm just going to flip through these 4 slides, give or take. I would ask, however, if you were promoted or tenured, would you please stand today? Please stand if you were promoted and tenured. Thank you, Jean Ann and Mark and Amy. Congratulations, and to everyone else. We also welcome 37 new faculty colleagues. So just a reminder, and if you're new to the Institute, at the Institute of Ag and Natural Resources, we have roughly 650 faculty. And that number has been fairly stable. About half are on the tenure track line, and the other half are what we call specialty track faculty. So our extension educators, our professors of practice, our lecturers, our research professors fall into that category that sit side by side with the tenure track faculty to really advance our 3 mission areas. So I'll just kind of run through these. We're going to have to get these photos taken care of here. We've got new leaders coming in, so you can take a look. I won't go through all of these, but pretty exciting. We've got 3 new unit leaders, academic unit leaders. Mark Stone joined us on July 1, and then Larkin Powell and Deb Van Overbeck in animal science, or in School of Natural Resources and Animal Science, joined us on the end of July, the beginning of August. We have a number of new leaders in there. Wes Peterson and Kate Brooks have stepped in to serve for interim leadership. Wes as the interim department head in Ag Econ, and Kate Brooks as interim associate department head. Reuben Benke joined us from South Dakota, where he was the South Dakota Mesonet director. So that was a terrific hire that John Carroll was able to make. Nicole LaFleur is a new member of the Doherty Water for Food Global Institute. I know Peter McCormick is over at Agronomy and Hort. They have their APR, their Academic Program Review, that just started last night. We kicked that group off, so they're here the whole week. So Peter's over there. I'm gonna probably break the rule, but there's a big announcement coming at the end of October at the World Food Prize in Des Moines that has something to do with Nicole and Peter and the entire DWFI team, and maybe something to do with a USAID Feed the Future Innovation Laboratory. So unofficially, pretty big deal. Julie Peterson stepped into serving as now our Associate Director at the West Central Research Extension and Education Center. And Cheyenne Gerlach is now here with Jill, I almost said Jill Yider, Jill O'Donnell in the Yider Institute as the Associate Director. So some terrific new leaders. We had quite a few faculty and staff colleagues that have retired effective or on June 30th as we rolled into this new year. These are amazing colleagues. You know, if you sit there and add up their time of service to the people of Nebraska and the various roles of our teaching and research and extension missions, it's pretty amazing. Every year since we've been here, -1 in COVID, Connie, my wife, and I host the Emeriti faculty and staff at our home. And it's happening on October 14th. So to the Emeriti who are in the room or maybe listening, and we hope to see you on the 14th. It's not too late. Just send Jesse Brophy a note, and we'll see. I'll probably overstep my bounds there, and we'll have so many people. Interesting little tidbit from our neck of the woods. We're fortunate enough to live on a small little reservoir, and the dam is being fixed, so there's no water in the reservoir. So if we need overcrowd space, I know where we can put them. So sediment flats. We have had the chance to recognize and celebrate excellence. Just, it's been fun. We had the Laurels celebration, which is an opportunity to celebrate colleagues from across UNL. We had that, the EVC hosted that 2 weeks ago. And then we had our very special event where we bestow new professorships and new chairships to our faculty. And so this year, we're doing something a little bit different, a little bit of a spoiler. We always have in the fall a celebration, a faculty and staff awards banquet, if you will. We've kind of sunsetted that banquet, and we moved the Dinsdale and Umtwite Innovation Awards to the medal ceremony for the faculty, and then our staff lunch, we're going to actually celebrate our staff awardees in front of all of their colleagues that come for that really nice sit-down meal that we have typically in the first week of December. We just thought it was a better chance to celebrate folks in front of their peers and so forth. So this was pretty fun the other night. Lots and lots and lots and lots of external awards, and I just should say thank you to colleagues that take the time to write a nomination for a fellow peer. People just don't get awards. It takes a lot of activity, and the internal awards, the professorships, the Dinsdale, the Umtwite Innovation Awards, those allow our faculty and staff to actually develop a portfolio that then makes them very, very, very positioned well for these national awards. So lots of great individuals and team awards. We've got a lot of leadership transitions. I mean, this is part of the academy. This is part of life here. So these individuals on the screen are all sailing off into the sunset. Ron Yoder, 19 years. We celebrated Ron in January and multiple times. Had a great celebration of Ron Yoder in this room. It was packed. There ended up being a bit of a receiving line, so that was fun to see folks walk through. Larry and David and John and Rick have all switched back to the faculty full-time. So John Carroll sent me a note this morning. He's in the classroom teaching. So John's not here. Bruce retired. Bruce Broderson, director of the Vet Diagnostics Center. Dustin Loy has stepped into that leadership role in a permanent way. And Martha Durr. Martha is resigning her role as a tenure-track faculty member, as our state climatologist, and she is going to work with Nebraska Indian Community College, and I think also Little Priest Community College. This is a passion of Martha's, and she served not only as our state climatologist who oversaw the mesonet, system, the weather monitoring system. But before that, she was the director of the High Plains Climate Center, the NOAA platform that we run out of Nebraska. So when you see these folks, if you haven't already said congratulations, please do so. And hot off the press, I know Bert's here. I didn't see Kurt Weller, but Bert and Kurt kind of rhymes. Bert and Kurt are both stepping back to the faculty after a decade of serving, close to a little more than a decade when we get to June next year, in their unit leadership roles. Bert's in the back of the room. Would you join me in thanking Bert and recognizing Bert? Step up, yep. Thanks, Bert. And Kurt, I hope you're not in the room because I didn't see you, but he's online. So, hey, Kurt, thank you very much for your leadership. Kurt's been busy too. He just landed back in the U.S. last week from a trip to China, to Yangling, and our partnership with Northwest Ag and Forestry University. Pretty cool platform. So we sent a note. I sent a note off to the faculty, staff, and the departments this morning, letting them know that we were making the announcement. Bert and Kurt have been talking to their colleagues informally. We will launch a national search, or an international search, if you will, for both of these positions. We will get them all teed up, and we will either start the advertising before the winter break, or most likely we'll wait until just the first week of January, but we'll have everything set up. I'll visit with both units independently, without the leader in the room, to just dream about the next step. Both departments are in an extremely good position to grow, and we're excited about this. So congratulations there. Rodney Bennett. Dr. Bennett has been on the campus now since July 1. Technically, I think he and Temple arrived somewhere in the middle of July. They're still putting their house together. Boxes, I think the moving truck showed up on the 18th of September, so it's still pretty fresh. But it's been a privilege to work with Chancellor Bennett. During the summer, after he was appointed, and I think after the board meetings, those special board meetings that I'll talk about here, President Carter's announcement about financial headwinds, I put a small video out. I think Chancellor Bennett is the right leader at the right time. He's student-centered. I've learned he's got more Rodney-isms than Mike has Mike-isms, so a lot of sayings. The main thing, let's keep the main thing, and that's our students. So you'll hear him say that. You'll hear him talk about, as we move forward, let's play the tape. So he's dating himself there. Let's play the tape all the way through. And I'm like, okay, the credits, is that what? So no, I think he just wants to see the whole story and not have any preconceived notions on the way certain things will pivot and shift. So Chancellor Bennett, while we were on, it was a little different of a Road Scholar tour. Some of you were on the bus. We take a big bus. Usually it's one of the big Go Big Red buses, so we can get around the state. But literally, we went from Lincoln to Nebraska City, and from Nebraska City all the way to Scotts Bluff. We didn't quite get to Mitchell or Harrison, but 1,100 miles, give or take. So they had a chance to see the whole state. And while we were on the bus, there was a filming crew. We also had Chris Dunker from the Lincoln Journal-Star. So for the first day, it was a little bit different. We had celebrities on the board with a little bit of a paparazzi. So, but on there, he gave a really neat, lot of neat reflections. And so next slide is a short 90-second video from Chancellor Bennett, just his impressions about Nebraska.
What a trip like this does, and especially over multiple days, is helps you to move that theory into a practical application. So now, instead of just hearing about the different parts of the state and the diversity that is here, you actually get to experience it. You know, you get to feel it and touch it and meet with the people and talk to the people and really sort of immerse yourself in the richness that's really here in a practical kind of way. So I think today in this tour,
really begins to bring into greater focus what the next 10, 12, 15 years, however long, can look like. If we're bold, if we're courageous, if we don't lose sight of what our responsibilities as the flagship and the land-grant institution are to the state, and what our fundamental sort of responsibility might be to students and to their families and to the taxpayers of the state. I think that we're only limited by our own imagination and our own creativity. And I know that at UNL, there are no shortage of people who are creative and who are passionate and who are committed to this work. So I'm excited to be a part of it, and I'm excited to be the chancellor of a place who has those types of values and those priorities.
Yeah, it was really special. He had a lot of firsts on that trip, right? Some of you have been on that trip. Sherry Jones, who grew up in Claytonia, I remember when she took the trip, she's like, I think you know more about Nebraska than I do. So if you're a sponge and you just really take in the place and the people, I mean, it just really is a magical place. But he gloved up and put his hand into a fistulated steer. That was quite the experience. I think he said once is enough for that. That was it. He climbed up, I don't remember the number. Those of you, most of our agronomy and hort friends are over in their APR, but he climbed up into this brand new John Deere smart spray rig. So it had a 120-foot boom that would go left and right, and I forget how many cameras that it had, but it basically had facial recognition for weeds, such that as the rig was moving across the field, it would spray just the weeds. And he loved that. I mean, he was smiling the whole time, and he stands up on the railing, and he's basically, we're all like watching the theater, and he's like, this is my inaugural University of Nebraska address. And then he screams out, he's like, Mike, I want one of these. And I'm like, well, for $720,000, I'm sure there's a down payment plan. And so it was pretty cool. We got him up to Scotts Bluff. We got him out into the orchard in Kimmel. We took him over to Clay's Center. South Central Ag Lab has its field day that day. That was really fun. And then not so good thing, but okay, our bus broke down at South Central Ag Lab. And but for the director out there, Mike, who happened to have Larry Gosen at NCTA, they got rid of a 25-passenger van at NCTA because they weren't using it. So South Central Ag Lab, or NREC, grabbed it, and so Mike drove us. This is the kind of commitment. Drove us over to North Platte, where we were having supper in the North Spike or Tower, looking over the Bailey yard. And I won't go into too much detail, but so that Mike could peel around and eat and get back, Kelly Bruns arranged a bus to get us from the tower to the hotel. That was really nice of Kelly, but I'll just say this, and you can ask somebody who was on the tour. No pictures were supposed to have been taken, but there aren't a lot of choices for commercial bus service in North Platte. So we had the party bus. And you could have seen me turn white as could be. There were no rows of seats, there was just the serpentine seat that went all around. And I got on there, and of course, Charlie's like, hey, everybody, smile! And I'm like, do not post that. Do not post that. Rodney gets on the bus, and I look at him, and he's like, oh my. First thing out of his mouth, no pictures. So that was good. I think we didn't quite get the karaoke machine up and running. But anyway, that was a first for sure. There we go. Well, another transition. Ted Carter, I think it was the middle of August, President Carter announced that he was departing and heading over to Columbus, Ohio to be the new president of Ohio State. I've heard Ted now talk publicly about this. In fact, some maybe who were at the tailgate, Chancellor's tailgate this last weekend. Yeah, it was a bittersweet decision. It will be 4 years. It seems hard to believe, 4 years that he's been here, but came 3 months before COVID, led through COVID, came out of COVID, and then into some serious budget reductions. I see we have mood lighting. This is very good. So yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about the lights. I shine too much if that's the case. So Ted's heading off. He and Linda. Linda's mom is getting up there and lives on the East Coast, so you can make it from Columbus, Ohio, over to Annapolis in a 8-hour, 9-hour drive. So I think that's that. He was invited and he turned them down at least once, I know for sure. I think maybe multiple times. But ultimately, when he started thinking about a platform to really think about the complexities that society's facing around trust in institutions, around trust in higher education, I think the allure of Ohio State was just a little much. So he announced, and he's looking forward. We've got him through December. I'll talk more about his 5-point plan and where we're at here in a minute. But I've really enjoyed working with Ted. I think the Navy thing was a commonality we have. I tease him all the time when we're sharing the stage. I too landed on aircraft carriers twice in my life. He has 2018. He holds a naval record, right? We were both naval officers. I was a lieutenant commander and he was a 3-star admiral. I don't know. There's not a lot of similarities there, except we both are grounded in the core values of honor, courage, and commitment, and lead. We try to lead every day with integrity and put the team first and getting everybody home from our mission. So I think there is some commonality there. So our strategic direction. Last year really was a journey to look in the rearview mirror, celebrate where we've been. IANR turned 50 years old, and Kasner, or the prototypes of Kasner, if you read the history books, it was called lots of things from the beginning, but 150 years of the college. And the picture, that opening salvo, that first picture would have represented the institute before there was an institute. If that was after 1914, would have had all 3 of our missions there with the Hatch Act, the Morrill Act, and the Smith-Lever Act. So that was kind of cool. I mentioned this in January, that I would go out and do a listening tour. Since I've come here, it's just get in the car with Jesse Brophy and whoever else is willing to go with us, and we drive around the state, and we pick different parts of the state. I think we had 21 stops over a 4-week period. We kind of chunked it into three-day intensive, 12 to 14-hour days. So down there on the bottom, you can see Jesse's so clever, and Jordan. They make T-shirts for the Rhodes Scholar Tour. So along with it, I put the Rhodes Scholar Tour stops, but we have T-shirts that, if you grew up in the 70s and the 80s, when you went to a concert, you bought a T-shirt and your favorite band, and they usually had their tour stops on the back, so that's what we had there. But the listening tours took us all over, to Valentine, to Ord, down to McCook. The Rhodes Scholar Tour augmented those, and we went some different places, like I already told you, over to Nebraska City, then over to Beatrice, to the monument. Thought it was really important for the Chancellor to appreciate that there were people here before Nebraska was a state, and to understand the complexities of Nebraska's history and indigenous tribal people, and so that was really good. I think one thing I would mention back kind of both on the listening tour, that was a common theme, and on the Rhodes Scholar Tour, was just the cool diversity of people that IANR has across the state. When we thought about students, faculty, and staff, really neat mix of folks bringing life experiences literally from around the world. And that was noticed. That was noticed by the Chancellor, by his wife. It was noticed by people who attended the listening sessions. So these listening sessions happened between January, really probably March and May. And it was a chance for me to just hear from folks. The graciousness of folks, very strong accolades to all of us, but also some very firm constructive criticism about what we might think about stop doing or how we might reposition ourselves. So this was excellent. We took that information. This is the celebration of innovation that was in this room, 350 some people. It was pretty cool. Mark McHarg, the president of the Nebraska Farm Bureau, thank you, gave a nice overview about where the Farm Bureau was thinking they were going to go. Clearly in the Farm Bureau's mind, they're a bit of a competitive bunch. They're after Iowa. So California's number one with about $50 billion annually, farm and ranch gate proceeds. Iowa's number two at about $35 billion, and we're number three in the U.S. at $26 billion. And I think the Farm Bureau's goal is to be in that number two slot. How are they going to get there? They're going to get there powered by and fueled by what we do in the Institute when we think about the challenges that are facing, the opportunities that are facing Nebraska, and really thinking about where we're going. In July, on July 13th, we took all of the listening tour information and we brought that together, and we had a chance to bring the expanded leadership team together. So the expanded leadership team, first I should say if we really had an expanded leadership team, it'd have 1,900 of us, plus another 3,300 students. That would be the whole group. But the expanded leadership team are folks that have director or department head, center director titles. Our extension focus area program leads are in that group. Our associate and assistant deans are in that group. And it was a chance for us to put all of this on the table and pressure test some of our thinking about where we've been, where we are, and where the Institute should perhaps move to. For those who play hockey, you know, let's skate to where the puck is, not where it is today. So Kara Peshek did a nice job of pulling and synthesizing some of that together. So I'm going to ask Kara, who leads our storytelling and our communications platform for the Institute, to come up and share a little bit about where we're at currently in the journey. And I'll pass this off to you. Thanks, Kara.
Thank you, Mike.
That microphone, yeah.
Okay, did that work? Okay. So we met, as Mike was saying, at the Leadership Advance in July. And during that time, we kind of went through, just as Mike said, where we've been, where we're at. And we looked, too, at some of the other strategic directions across the university system, the N2025 plan, as well as within our own departments within IANR, so CASNR, CEHS, ARD, Extension. We looked, too, to the strategic plans of institutes like the USDA and some of our other partners. And then we just talked about what we're historically good at, where we see some of the needs of Nebraska and the needs of the agriculture and natural resources industries. And we brought in David and Teresa, David Buchholz and Teresa Paulson, who are two consultants, to help us distill all of this information. So after a few hours of discussion, we had a few takeaways. And so I won't read through all of these, but a couple that really stand out. There are significant and serious challenges facing the state, and IANR is uniquely positioned to help Nebraska and its people manage many of these. Those include soil. Oh, do I need that microphone? Thank you. Those include soil and water quality, climate change, weather extremes, rural community vitality. You get the idea. I also thought a point that was made over and over that really struck me was that we must strike a balance as we move forward with the strategic direction about being aspirational and then also being just very focused on the practical issues facing our state, facing agriculture, facing natural resources, and Nebraskans. And then we also discussed that many land grants kind of who are our peer institutions, are looking at these same issues and making strides in these same spaces. And so what makes us different? What sets us apart? So we're boiling all of this down, and I'll get to that in the next slide. We also spoke spoke a little bit about the 6 communities of practice within IANR. These were formed around 2011 and were really developed to guide hiring across the Institute. And so these were the areas where leaders of IANR at that time believed that we could really be competitive and that this would set us up to tackle future challenges. By and large, these still really resonate, but in talking through it, I think that worked. We came up with this. 3 of those 6 communities, science literacy, computational sciences, and stress biology, really underpin all that we do. They can't really be separated out. So that leaves us with 3 kind of buckets that most of our work falls into. So healthy humans, although there was a robust discussion about whether healthy was the word that we really wanted to use. Drivers of economic vitality for Nebraska, and then healthy livestock, agricultural, and natural resources systems. So this is where we're at in terms of kind of pinning down our strategic direction and those areas that we feel like we can be a place to lead, but there's some next steps. So some of you would have received a survey last week. We're distilling those responses now. Thank you if you filled that out. We're discussing our strategic direction, but also just the issues facing ag, natural resources, various industries related to agricultural and natural resources in Nebraska tomorrow with our ABN leadership. We're assembling an internal working group to go through all this information and identify some of the pieces that we really think merit deeper discussion and focus. And if you're interested in being part of that working group, let me know or let Mike know. And then we'll continue to work with our external consultants, David and Teresa, as well as the working group and leadership to articulate a plan, which we'll distill down and share in early 2024. So that is where we're at. And that leads to the next slide.
You don't want to talk about this, do you?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we have been, I think the 6 communities have served us really, really, really well, and that's great, but I think everybody's interested in contemporizing those. I mean, honest to goodness, if you go back to 2010 and you look at who was here and who's new, almost 60% of the Institute is new. And you didn't get your fingerprints. You didn't have a voice in where we were going. And so now we've invited you through our celebration of innovation, through the on-campus listening sessions, and then through the statewide listening tour. And now we're kind of in this final stage of engaging with our commodity boards, the citizens, and really asking the questions. The other thing that has happened nicely is that the deans have all developed their big 3. I'll steal extensions, big 3. Well, Sherry Jones has in CHS the big 3, and Kasner has the big 3, and ARD with Derek's leadership is looking at the big 3. So like we have the big 12, but in truth, when you look at it, those 3 things, those 3 communities are really the buckets that we all can tether back to with maybe a change in the wording. So that's where David and Teresa will be helpful to us. The goal is to have this shared, when Kara said early 2024, January 10th is the annual meeting of the Ag Builders of Nebraska, and I intend to share our 3 to 5 pager with them. Perfect timing with Chancellor Bennett's arrival. If you've listened to Chancellor Bennett, he's not shy about talking about agriculture and natural resources. Really appreciate that. And yeah, he's probably taken a little bit of heat, to be honest with you. I was at an alumni event with some of you in the room, Tiffany Hang-Moss in Denver, and he stood up. We were at the Coors Stadium. There was not a baseball game. They seem to be struggling, but I'll leave the baseball out of this for now. But reality was that he stood up in front of everyone and basically in front of all the other deans, all the alumni, and talked about how critical ag and natural resources was. So I think that's a good thing for us. Okay, the budget. Can be a heavy deal here, but I'm going to say, just stay with me. You've had the faith for the last 7 years. Just keep in this space. Think about diametrically opposed things where we're going to have to tighten the belt on one side, but we're going to surge resources, ebb and flow. That's what we've been doing. Ted Carter's deal is playing offense and defense from the Top Gun movie on the beach. If you like that vision better, what are they doing out there, said the Admiral? Well, they're playing offensive and defense at the same time. We've been doing that. We have been doing that. We will manage, that's the word I've been using with the community here, we will manage through the budget reductions that are for sure coming. We will not let that become our leadership agenda, because if we do that, then we just should pack it up and go home. And you haven't, and the culture of IANR is in a healthy place in that regard. So Ronnie Green last spring, if you redial, gosh, that seems like a long time ago, but it was 6 months ago, Chancellor Green invoked for the 3rd time in his chancellorship the Academic Planning Committee rules of shared governance around making a significant budget reduction. And he had a lot of this was in UNL Today, and he wrote quite a bit. But here's a quote from him, picking up on President Carter's headwinds analogy, that we've got headwinds coming. The numbers bopped around all last spring. Enrollment was across the U.S., enrollment post-COVID is struggling. And then when you look at, if you believe the demographers, in the late 2020s here, so in the next 5 to 6 years, the number of 18-year-old Nebraskans coming to campuses, the traditional college age, is getting smaller and smaller. I've lived through this ebb and flow maybe twice in the last 40 years. So think about maybe bringing it home, those of you who have kiddos. School districts kind of ebb and flow. Neighborhoods ebb and flow, right? They turn over, and then the youthful folks come in, and then the schools have to take elementary schools out of mothballs, and then they have these big classes, and then everybody kind of, has grandkids, and then they wait. And so we go through this cycle, but it's a really important cycle, because there's far fewer college-age students out there, and there are 4,000 institutions of higher learning that are all competing, right? So all the more reason why we need to be strategic. We need to know ourselves. We need to know what we're good at. We need to know what the needs of the state are, and we need to focus, and we need to be intentional, and that's what we're going to do. He invoked a process that then led to Lincoln Journal Star article that said in big bold letters, it was on all the local newspapers here in Lincoln, $10.8 million reduction that would go into effect on July 1. Of that $10.8 million, IANR took $2.8 million of that. That was the largest percentage of any entity at UNL. Now, if you rolled up all of the colleges, for example, that report into the EVC office, it would be more than what we had. But a single institute or single college, we had the bulk of that. Just for way of reminder, okay, 2017, 2018, the Great Recession finally caught Nebraska. This was a time, and I'm no ag economist, so excuse me, colleagues, for this, but that was a time when commodity prices, corn prices, bean prices, and livestock prices were all in the gutter at the same time. They were in a trough, and so it was a double whammy. We took, back then, a $2.5 million reduction. On my very first listening tour in the state, I faced the music for our friends up in Haskell Ag Lab, up in northeast Nebraska, where Haskell Ag Lab was on the the potential cut list. Thankfully, we didn't need to do that. But 2.5 million COVID-induced reductions, $10.1 million. That was a lot of money. And then last spring, effective this July, 2.8 million for fiscal year 2024. So when you add it all up, there's north of 15 million, $15.5 million. Now the hard part of this is that those are permanent dollars. So if we don't have 15 million bucks, if we have 15 less this year than we had last year, that's $15 million every year less. So over a 10-year period, that's $150 million less that we are able to invest in the Institute. And that's just the Institute. The big number that Chancellor Green during his time was $66 million all in at UNL. So from the time he started to the time he left, 7 years, $66 million light. You put that over 10 years, that's over $500 million. So it's a big deal. And I'm sharing this with you first in full transparency that we've managed this. We've managed it. And to be completely candid, the first two we did without coming to the academic units and saying we need you to overtly reduce your budget. This last time was just too much. After cutting and cutting and cutting, it was just too much to take centrally. So we continue to tighten the belt. In my office, for example, in the deans, in the big one, all of them took a 10% reduction in their operating budget. I'm not refilling Ron Yoder's position, so we're redistributing some of what Ron did. We're sunsetting some of what Ron did. We're just taking that on, the deans, Rich, Jeff, Kara, and I. So we're doing our part. I didn't believe that we were going to escape with only 2.8 for this fiscal year. So that maybe is the good news or the bad news. This is like my 7th time in 40 years of dealing with budget reductions, and I just didn't believe the math. So what we did is we went, and many of you were involved in this process, we went and we, quote unquote, rebased every one of the units in IANR. There are 78 account units in the Institute. And we went in and we pulled back some base budget. And then we looked at, for the first time, as best as we could, we looked at key indicators of progress. So what does that mean? We've been talking at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for 7 years about incentive-based budgeting. Some of you have been at institutions where they call it responsibility-centered budgeting, whatever. The idea is that you identify what's important in your key mission areas, and you are transparent on what's important. So if students and student success is important, then by golly, our programs ought to be focused on student success, on strategic enrollment growth, not growth for growth's sake, but strategic enrollment growth where we can grow, where we should shrink, but if we're doing the things that matter and the units doing things that matter, then they should be able to expect an increase in their base budget. If they're not doing those things chronically, then they should expect a reduction. And you smooth it out over time. Again, I'm no economist, so that you don't live year by year, but you smooth it over, say, a 3-year rolling average, and you live on the margin, basically. So if your net margin goes up, you could expect an increase. If your net margin goes down, you should expect a decrease, and you can plan for that. Same in research. Research and scholarship and discovery and innovation and entrepreneurship, all these words we use are not easily quantified. And so Derek has been working with unit leaders, with the deans, to try to figure out what does that look like. We celebrate, right? We celebrate big accomplishments. We're 46%, right? I say that every time I'm up here. 46% of UNL's research output is connected to us in the Institute. That's amazing, right? in some ways, you might say it's even a little bit lopsided for a comprehensive land grant R1 flagship university. And the investments in engineering, for example, the investments in the business college over the last 7 years are all designed to elevate, raise the tide, and every ship rises. So back over to that, to the incentive-based budgeting concept, we grabbed some of these key indicators, and this year we used those. So we went through all 78 units, and the deans went through, and we very moderate, slight adjustments up. And then we talked about what this system will look like going forward. Interestingly, now kind of flashing forward, that big number's up there. And if you haven't taken the time, I would encourage you to go to the Board of Regents website and take a look at President Carter's. Just watch it. It's about 35 minutes. Watch his presentation to the Board of Regents laying out how we as a system have a $58 million deficit. Enrollment decline, huge increase. Those of you in the HR world know this. Huge increase in the cost of benefits. Huge increase in insurance costs. Those of you who own a home or pay utilities know that your utilities have gone sky high. All those costs we also have at the university system. And then those costs are shared across the platform based on how many people, how many students, how many buildings, so forth and so on. Just simple math that I've been sharing with you for the last 7 years. Half of whatever the system has, as far as a deficit or as a windfall, comes to UNL. So you do the math pretty quick, 29 million bucks. Out of that, roughly 27% of the half that comes to UNL comes to IANR. So that's quick math if you just spread the peanut butter. The chancellors and the president have said that FY24, the year that we're in right now, is the last year for just simply following that calculus that I've just described. Half to UNL, 27% to IANR. Instead, bless you, Charlie, instead, the chancellor or the president has put out this thing he's calling the 5-point plan, which is really to ask the question, if the flagship university, land grant, R1, comprehensive university, aspires to be, and they're using the AAU, getting back in the AAU as kind of an overarching goal, if that's our goal, folks, you just can't keep cutting the flagship land grant R1 comprehensive university. Of course, the pie is only so big. So if you're going to choose to distort resource to the land grant flagship, then who is not getting? And you're seeing that now across the system. Just last Monday, a week ago, UNK, and if you watch the news now, UNK has almost a $5 million reduction at their campus, and they have they've put some cuts on the table that have people's attention. So this year that we're in is the last year that we're just going to expect some kind of a peanut butter reduction while this 5-point plan is working out. To be clear, the president has not told Chancellor Bennett what his number is. He's not told him yet, out of the 58 million, what UNL's number is. The Chancellor Bennett is a quick study, and he's been doing the math, and he's been talking to a lot of people. And I expect here, in full transparency, that we will get some kind of a public word from Chancellor Bennett here in the next 7 to 14 business days that gives him a chance to say how he envisions us tackling our share of that number. So I'm just going to leave you with that. We've managed our way out of this before. We'll continue to manage our way going forward. And we will have to ebb, and we will also be flowing resources at the same time, which is the confusing part. I guess I just would like to come back, and I've said this to the group before, in the academy, every single one of us takes our role, our job, our mission pretty seriously. And the system in the academy, just really our accomplishments on our CVs, on our resume, and our annual reviews, becomes very personal. Very personal. And I would just ask us all on the human side of this not to let the budget management in any way get in and interfere with your own sense of personal value, worth, the value of your unit. That just don't go there. Again, we'll manage our way through this. It'll be a communal conversation, and we'll come out, and I'm confident we'll weather this. In the big picture, it's probably another 5 to 6% reduction in our budget. So 5 to 6% on our budget is somewhere between a $4.5 and $6 million reduction on top of the 15.5. So we probably will end up somewhere around 20 million, 21 million. And then we'll get on with it. And then we'll just keep moving. So that's all I want to say about the budget. I'm happy to answer questions, but I want to pivot over to federal relations. So we're fishing in new water. This is where I'm going to drive that. We traditionally fund things through philanthropy, through grant writing, through donations, gifts, through tuition. But there's a whole brave world out there in the federal space of appropriations. And if you're watching the news, you're having a civics class play out right in front of us right now. We take the picture over there in front of the Capitol. The deans and I have the privilege of identifying stakeholders who are really good at engaging on the federal agenda. And we take them to Washington, D.C. every year, and we go and we visit our delegation. And these are some of the folks that we took. Mark Swoboda down there, I think it was in June, lose track of these visits. Mark was invited to give a brief on NDMC, the Drought Monitor, and other climate programs to the U.S. House of Representatives, Natural Resources and Ag Committee staffers. So that was pretty cool. Why does this matter? Because it pays off. So those of you who were part of Community Vitality in Extension or in Rural Futures, we merged those a couple of years back to create Rural Prosperity Nebraska. Mary Emery is the director. They landed a grant for $25 million from USDA Rural Development, one of only 12 that was awarded in the whole country. And only one of 4 that is being led at a university. It's a partnership deal there. We had the chance to, as I mentioned, the whole delegation here on campus. They were like kids in a candy store when they got over to the robotics lab. But they were able to get a glimpse when it came to digital agriculture of the future. Again, why does this matter? $25 million sitting in this current appropriations bill. So when you hear them talk about the Probst bill in the U.S. Senate, Senator Fisher inserted $25 million for the National USDA Center. Another $3 million in the 2023 Farm Bill for what? To fund the National Drought Mitigation Center. That's pretty cool. I won't go through this, but you can take a look at the numbers. Already $31 million has been appropriated in FY21 and 22 for the National Center. Congressman Fortenberry was carrying the water on this. He relinquished his seat, but both Senator Fisher and Congressman Flood have picked this up and are pushing pretty hard. You add those numbers up for the National Center, it's about $140 million. This is a rendition. They are just now finishing design. In January, we had our friends, Virginia Ginn and the ARS team come and talk to us. I'm here to tell you that they've got enough money for the greenhouse complex. So the greenhouse complex will be, groundbreaking will take place next spring to summer. It will be attached to our Greenhouse Innovation Center, which is a really another great installment in there. They're a large building. It's about the size of the Scarlet Hotel. They have 31 million there, but they need 125 to break ground on that. So they're still raising the money through the appropriations process. And then over there, the AgTech Innovation Accelerator is the next iteration of the Combine, which is an incubator, an AgTech incubator. The state of Nebraska appropriated $25 million for this building, and I'm in the midst of trying to raise the other $25 million. That's a $50 million building. The buildings are just buildings, folks. The magic is the people. So why does this all matter? The USDA will double the size of USDA ARS scientists in Lincoln with this project. They're going to take their 2 research programs and explode them to 4. They've got 17 scientists here. They're going to add another 19. They've got 33 staff members. They're going to add another 60. In total, we will have almost 140 USDA scientists in Lincoln, Nebraska, in addition to the 50 scientists that are over at Clay Center and the support staff over at Clay Center. It's a big deal. Other examples of how our engagement with the agencies and with the delegation have paid off. $10 million award just announced last week to the Nebraska Forest Service and the State Arboretum. That's a really neat program. Going down another $6 million going into the High Plains Regional Climate Center and the associated network. Another $4 million on top of a big grant that Ed Cahoon and James Schnabel got out of the Department of Energy, on top of 12.4 that we got last year. And you can see some other investments. Many of those are year after year. This just doesn't happen, and I don't know about you, those of you who write grants, but grants are harder and harder and harder to get. When you have a 7% acceptance rate, that means you have a 93%. And in any grading I've ever done, 93 is a solid A. So we need to open up these other avenues, and so we've been busy at this. I'm going to flip this over to Rich, but the song that's going through my head now is Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, Witch oh Witch. Activity Insight's going away. So, yeah, you can all applaud. Oh, you don't need that, yeah. Thanks. I wasn't singing that song for you, Rich. I was Activity Insight.
I was worried. So I'm going to rely heavily on notes. I apologize for that. I want to make sure that my message is tight for you. There's a lot here, and I want to make sure I deliver it all. Having a tight message is what we want from you with your annual reporting, as well. So this will be somewhat of I hope, a model for that. So the Board of Regents requires that all faculty members are evaluated annually. The purpose of annual evaluation are to provide feedback on past and current performance, to clarify goals and expectations, and also to coach individuals to success. So faculty members are responsible for documenting their accomplishments and impacts. It's that documentation that provides the foundation for annual evaluation. In fact, we can't do annual evaluation without your documentation. So if you don't turn anything in, then we can't conduct an annual evaluation. That's how this needs to go. For more than a decade, we've required faculty members to document their goals, accomplishments, and impacts through Activity Insight. Despite our attempts to improve the tool, it's become glaringly apparent that it's not meeting our needs, and for many, it's a distraction to effective evaluation. When the most dreaded day in your professional life is the day that you open Activity Insight, you know that we've got a problem, and I know that for many of you that's been the case. So consequently, we're walking away from requiring Activity Insight as our data collection tool for annual evaluation. Activity Insight will not be used to collect data for this year's annual evaluation. We will not be generating reports through Activity Insight this year for your annual evaluation. The university's contract, however, with Watermark is not going away. Watermark is the parent company that produces Activity Insight. That contract gives us access to Activity Insight for the next 3 years. All except our newest faculty members have data and Activity Insight that you've reported for our annual evaluation. You will continue to have access. We're not turning it off for you. You'll continue to have access to your data reports for at least the next 3 years. If you would like these reports, it will be your responsibility to log into Activity Insight and get them. We're not going to be doing that for you. We are stepping away from Activity Insight. For your 2023 performance evaluation, we are going to require a narrative report of your goals, accomplishments, and impacts, and a current CV or resume. We've designed the instructions for this narrative report to encourage reflection on your accomplishments and how those accomplishments are contributing to your long-term goals, and to help you and us tell the story of the impact of the work that you're doing. Your narrative report will consist of 3 parts. First, we ask that you provide a description of your goals and accomplishments in each area of your apportionment. Second, we want you to choose an accomplishment or something that you're currently working on that you're particularly proud of or excited about. And we want you to tell us why that's impactful. We want you to tell us the impact that that's having. Third, we want you to report on other contributions you're making, such as developing collaborative teams, contributing to environments of belonging, mentoring, innovations in teaching or extension, or your contributions to committees or groups. We want to make sure that you're getting credit for these other contributions that we value, but that often are not part of the currency of annual evaluations. We're limiting the narrative to 4 pages. We welcome and encourage fewer than 4 pages. You do not have to hit the page limit, but please don't exceed it. Because there is some information that the deans need to advance the missions of teaching, research, and extension, you will also be asked to complete a very brief, I'm going to say this again, a very brief Qualtrics survey in which you will report only the numbers of publications, grants, programs, classes, those kinds of things. I promise you that this is going to be very, very brief. The deadline for annual reporting will continue to be January 15th, and you're going to receive specific annual reporting guidelines in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I promise, before November 1st, and hopefully much sooner than that. We have a few I's that need to be dotted, a few T's that need to be crossed, a few people that we need to talk to before we finalize those instructions. I'm confident that this is going to be an improvement over Activity Insight.
You can clap. Okay, then, last couple of slides, kind of looking what's on the horizon, maybe what's over the horizon a little bit. On November 14th and 15th, out in Kearney, is that right? Fall conference, really going to look at the power of programming. So Charlie and the team put out a list of our new program area leaders. I think we're calling them PALs. I think that's what I'm calling them. I don't know, our PALs. But really thinking about how to be more intentional even than we've been when it comes to our programming. I think Charlie sent out another nice note to the department heads connecting the PALs and the academic unit leaders. We are really trying this year, we'll be doubling down actually on how we connect different leaders that should be just candidly talking with each other. Academic units that have extension, teaching, and research missions need to be connected with our program areas in ways that we simply haven't. A little bit of an impermeable membrane that we need to open up a little bit. Similarly, our center directors connecting in with our unit leaders, understanding where the strategy is going for each of these groups. I think that's part of our recipe of where 1 + 1 + 1 is 5, not 2, and certainly not not 3 and certainly not 2. So that's coming up. Save the date, Friday, December 1st. That's like almost 2 months from now, 60 days, the ARD annual conference. So we're excited about that in this the same channel, the same room. The Beef Innovation Workshop is taking place, I think that's already next week. That's kind of hard to believe. So if you're interested, please participate in that. And just kind of looking down the road, we have 45 days to figure out what's going on in Washington, D.C., which was a lot better than thinking today of being a non-work day and not a pay day for our federal colleagues. A lot of work has to take place here between now and the 45 days from now, middle of November. I guess fall conference will be an important day for other reasons too. So I just end then with this slide, right? The strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each individual member is the team. And that's how we get along. Every person, every interaction matters. IANR is a special place because of you, because of us. And let's just keep moving things along. And with that, I'm happy to take some questions. The only thing between you and your free lunch are your questions. So I'm happy to answer anything or respond. Thanks again for your time. Yep.
With the updates that are going on and the sidewalks going into the Arboretum area, I'm wondering what the status is for Legacy Plaza.
Wow. Dan Trotter, are you here? He's probably online. Dan and I just talked about this. So Dana talked about the Arboretum. So if you haven't been in the Arboretum, take a walk through. I like the wood mulch paths, and I like the old look of the little waterway, but truth be told, the old waterway had creosote and impregnated railroad ties. Didn't seem really like a good thing for water quality, being the water campus. So we fixed that last year. We had to remove the bridge, so we've got a new bridge that's going in, so that's cool. And while the mulch was cool, it would wash away, and the lighting was not good. So we have now made it way more accessible, and we've made it more safe with the concrete, although my inbox is filling up with a small number of why are you adding more concrete? But that's that piece. Jumping over to Legacy Plaza, the project that just doesn't ever seem to be able to start, Dana. So Legacy Plaza, when the C.Y. Thompson Library was re-envisioned as the Dinsdale Family Learning Commons, when the East Campus Union went through its renovation, I think you pay attention to the dairy store. So for the first time in its history, it actually has its own space. It feels like a store. Now that we've opened up the old dairy lab where they froze the ice cream, that's become a bit of a rough, if you will, collaboration zone. We have a food pantry, so part of the Husker pantry is there. It's sad to think that we need to have a food pantry on campus for food insecurity amongst our community, but it's real, and we have students that depend on that, so that's important. We have made some changes to our visitor center there. And then David Jackson, who works over in the president's office, in the provost's office, told me he used to make tortillas in what is now called the FUSE space, the Food, Energy, Water, and Societal Systems space that Bailey Fight and Tamara Middlestedt are engaged in. That's a neat collaboration zone for high schoolers. From here in Lincoln at Northeast High School, in the FUSE program, where they learn their math, their English, their chemistry, their social studies, their leadership through the eyes and lenses of what we do on the East Campus: food, energy, water, and societal systems. It also is a space for our partners and our pathway programs all across Nebraska to come, and it's their entry point. So they come in off of Holdridge, And you may have noticed that we put in a new steps, front steps or a stoop that bring them where? Right out to the plaza. So the connective tissue is what's the next part of the process. A lot of hardscape is going to be put in. So if you go out the south doors of the Union, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, the ramp that takes you past the big stone that was there, that ramp's going to go away. There's going to be a new entry point in some kind of a safe manner, so it won't be like a sledding hill or a cliff, but it'll take you down to the sidewalk. And then envision, if you stand on that concrete and look at Dinsdale, there will be a wraparound porch that will mirror the porch that's on the other side by the fireplace, some kind of a terraced deal that then leads into a gently sloped sidewalk that will take you two directions. One, over to the dairy store, of course, or two, to the front door of Dinsdale, to the outdoor area. Over at the dairy store, those arches that are falling apart, those are going to go away, and there's going to be an outdoor seating area, terraced outdoor seating area. The green space that exists there, which we refer to as the meadow will be more active. Folks will be able to grab their ice cream, sit out there, and kids play, and then students and faculty and staff can enjoy this terraced look back. Over by Massengale, where there's just kind of an abrupt dead end into George Beadle, there's actually going to be a turnabout there, such that cars can turn about. And then the loading dock, which is kind of an unsightly kind of a thing, the loading dock is going to shift a little bit to make safer for vehicle coming in and out. That project has just been sitting there and sitting there, sitting there. It has now been approved, and they will be putting fences up here. Knock on wood. They're going to put fences up and get going on it yet this fall. I've asked Dan Trotter just this morning to make sure that they put some photos or some imagery about what's happening there so that you all can take a look. Over on East Campus Loop between AgCom and Philly, I've heard this loud and clear, and we've all heard it. Very, very scary bus stops in the middle of the road. So the two bus stops are going to go away, and there's going to be a cutout for the bus to actually pull off, unload passengers, load passengers. So that'll be safer. And then on this side, literally between Philly and AgCom, we are putting in, and I've lost track of what the number of spaces, but there will be green, permeable pavers, permeable concrete, so environmentally sound. We're putting in a small parking lot on the north side of Campus Loop South. So it's sitting between those two buildings. It'll be smartly done to allow greater access to the campus for those that need that proximity parking. So that's part of this project. So very excited. I'll believe it when I see it. But everything's cleared to go. So yeah. Thanks for asking that question. Okay, here we go.
So I heard some discussion about marketing
Yeah.
of UNL. What's some ideas or what's some plan you have out there for marketing IANR across the state?
Yeah, well, the first marketing plan is that we need to be present, right? And I've said this ever since I've come here, you have to be present. All of us need to be out as much as possible and engaging with the people. So our engagement zone model, our forward deployed 600 folks, many of whom are extension professionals, the pathway programs that we have through CASNR, the 14 research extension education platforms across the state. All of that is part of who we are, and again, putting miles. Charlie definitely, I asked him to drive more than me. I asked him to drive smarter than me, and he's out there. But so too is Derek. So too is Tiffany. So too is Sherry Jones. And of course, Larry Gosen, who's not really technically NCTA, not part of IANR, but we're even connecting with NCTA in ways that we've never done before. So I think that's the number one part of the marketing plan. I think the other side of this is that we really need to keep what's important to the people out there in the state of Nebraska, keep that front and center. What's important to our students. I think, Ron, we've had this conversation in Extension, in 4-H, Kathleen's back there. You know, we can't sit on the laurels of the past. We need, the big red N needs to be there. I think we can make an I, an A, and a, right? IANR. We use that big red N and IANR. Gosh, I need my lunch. But we can project both the big red N and do IANR without losing the connective tissue of our departments, without losing the autonomy of Extension or CASNR or ARD. And I think that's where David and Teresa, I think, will help us out a little bit. Things like the vision, Raising Nebraska is amazing, but so too is our footprint with Kimmel Orchard, NREC, West Central, the Panhandle, REEC. Those have to be marquee innovation kind of hubs. Think of them as mini Raising Nebraskas. Think about a dream that we have that, you know, I love the Henry Dorley Zoo, but you don't have to visit the zoo 3-4 times by the time you graduate from high school. Maybe an age-dependent opportunity where every age-appropriate school class is actually visiting one of our platforms, right? Think about working with the Nebraska Department of Transportation, a little bit like Iowa. I'll steal their good idea, that one with the windmill and the soil profile. I don't understand why we can't have a passport program for families that are moving across Nebraska that literally could stop and get their passport at the first rest stop that they come into, and that we actually guide them to cool things to see 5 miles north and south of I-80, and do that in partnership. And we have a staff member whose partner actually oversees the rest stops. So I think there's some cool stuff there. But beyond that, there are some big marketing discussions that are taking place at the university. My counsel, and I've been saying this, is that we need to dial in what the University of Nebraska-Lincoln is really, really, really good at. And agriculture, natural resources, and rural community, thriving rural communities is a part of that, including young children, right? We need to be part of that solution set. Things like water quality, we need to be part of the solution set. We were part of the problem, candidly, and we're got to be part of that solution. Childcare deserts, especially with the threat of a shutdown, huge. Healthcare deserts, food deserts that exist right here in the state. We can do a lot of good, but it's going to take us to pivot a little bit on how we engage and what that looks like, Ron. Yeah, you bet. Well, I've got the mic, and then I think we'll just cut and let's go eat. I do want to say, I see our friends from the foundation. I see Kristen was here. Where's Kristen? Yep, and Marcia over here. Doug, right there. So would you three stand up, just because you're special folks, and I want to make sure that I recognize you. So these three individuals are part of what was a 5-person team for IANR. When I got here, we had a 2-person team, and then went up to 5. You can sit down. Let's give them an applause. So one of their colleagues, Barbara Soderman, went back. She's chasing a dream. She's leading the Flatwater Free Press Foundation. She came from the Omaha World Herald. She's a writer. She came here, did a great job with the foundation, and now she's putting writing and her passion for writing and her passion for friend-raising, fundraising, and stewardship of gifts and that. So that's an open position. And then just yesterday, it was publicly announced that Josh Egley, the Senior Development Officer for IANR, is got a new gig. He's going to still be at the foundation, but he's got a promotion. So he is going to work as, I don't know, the number 2, or there's a tie for number 2. There are 2 individuals that are going to support the UNL lead development officer. And so Josh is going to take that role. As I understand it, IANR, College of Engineering, CEHS, those are 3 of the units that are going to be in his larger portfolio. So he's not really going anywhere, but we will be hiring a new senior director and then a new director, and we'll get back up to 5. So if you see Josh, you know Josh, tell him thank you and then watch your wallet. He's really good at what he does. No, I'm teasing about the wallet. Okay, let's go grab lunch, and welcome back. Feels like midterms already are hitting, so let's go grab some lunch. Thanks for being here.